Hello and welcome to another ASE Productions video. I was going to do more videos on this HP laptop I just picked up, but my dad called and told me that his external hard drive quit working, and he has a lot of important information on here that he only has in one place. So he asked me to take a look at it. It's a My Passport Ultra from Western Digital. It's a 2 terabyte external hard drive. Works off USB 3. And I plugged it into my computer, and the computer recognizes that a drive is plugged in, but it's saying that the drive needs to be initialized. It's not good. So typically what I do, one of the first things I do, is I like to pull the hard drive out and use my external hard drive bay. And I'm going to pull that out here in just a second, show you what. I actually have 2 of them. Sorry, I cleaned up my desk, which meant I just kind of shoved everything out of the way, and I don't know where anything is. So this is one style I have. This happens to just be sub-rent. I bought it on Amazon cheap years ago. And it's a nice one because it could do 2 hard drives. It can also clone from hard drive 1 to hard drive 2 with just a push of the button back here without actually having to interact with the computer. So I did a lot of drive cloning, especially with the last company I worked for, because they are firing people right and left after a merger, and they wanted me to back up data without people actually knowing. So I go in after hours, clone their drive when they weren't there, and put their drive back in so nobody knew the wiser before they got fired. It was lovely, but this made that tool a lot easier. Before I didn't get fired. I quit. But that's what happens when the company gets bought out. Different story. So that's one style I have. Another style I have, and I thought it was right here, and I apologize. I'm just doing this video on the fly, but I have to go grab it. So give me just a moment. I'll go grab it, and I'll be right back. This is the other style I have. It also uses USB 3 and any 2.5 inch drive. So this, as you can tell by the slots, can either do a 2.5 or a 3.5 inch drive. This will do just a 2.5 inch drive. And I've used this many times over the last many years very successfully to recover drives. A lot of times with an external hard drive, the controller board gets too much electricity or gets a shock when it gets plugged in or out, and it'll fry the controller board, which then prevents it from working. And a lot of times the drive itself will be okay. Sometimes it'll be bad if it's been dropped or bumped or whatever, cause the drive to go bad. But a lot of times I've found that it's the controller board that's bad, because most hard drives are made by one of 2 or 3 different companies anymore. In the same factories in China for the most part. So hard drive quality for the most part, obviously there's exceptions, but for the most part pretty reliable, pretty standard. It's these controller boards that the reliability is much more varied on, in my experience. Obviously I haven't come across every single hard drive and every single controller board in the world. That's just been my experience. So I've used this a lot. I like it because it's a lot more portable than this, but this can do both drives and can clone, which I like. Anyway, so those are the 2 devices I use the most often. And normally what I do, as you can tell, is I break open the external hard drive box after I plug it in, determine there's an issue, and I plug it into one of my other 2 adapters. Unfortunately, this is a proprietary piece of junk, and I can't do that. This is soldered on. There is no serial ATA port on this. So I'm going to have to keep using the USB port. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to use this cord. Though it's probably not the cord, I'm going to use this cord for my other one. That is also USB 3, just to rule out the cord as being an issue. So, anyways, that's step number 1. for me typically is once I determine there's a problem, pop it out, make sure, eliminate the controller board as an issue, put it into a different external hard drive enclosure, just to make sure that's not the issue. But I will say this, these external hard drives, and I got a bunch of these, I like them, they're very handy, they're very useful for transferring data from one system to another quickly, especially if they're not on the same network. So like when we share pictures with other family members, things like that, we use one of these external hard drives, great. These are not a permanent backup solution. They're not reliable, they're not trustworthy. And this has a lot of original files that are not stored anywhere else. The only safe bet is to have multiple copies on multiple redundant systems. If you have information that's important, you should have it stored in three locations. You should have it stored on a quick drive that's easy access, which could be something like this. You should have an on-site rated storage, something like a Western Digital MyCloud. Okay? You should have a third option. Your most important documents should be in the cloud somewhere. Now, you can use a MyCloud if you have a friend or family member that you trust implicitly and has a good internet connection. Put one over at their house, and maybe if you could do a swap, they have one over at your house, and you can put stuff on that system over at their house. Or use OneDrive, pay for a OneDrive, or a box, or a Dropbox, or something for your most important information. So that way, if your house burns down, your most important information is somewhere. This is not a backup solution. It just isn't. You cannot rely on these. Get a proper backup solution. I may or may not do a video on that. I have a bunch of, hopefully, new content coming up in the next little bit. So, but in this video, I will tell you, this is not a backup solution. I cannot stress that enough. You need a redundant, reliable system. It needs to be in at least 3 locations at all times. I have mine in more than that because I've gone through data loss before and I never want to have to experience that again. So I'll go ahead. I'm going to stop at this point. I'm going to see what I can do from here. Boot with it. Going to have to create a Linux bootable USB is probably my next step to see if because I used to have a Mac. I don't have a Mac anymore, to see if I can pull the files off of this without having to go through the Windows file system. So I'll be back when I get that USB booted up. Thank you. Okay, so you can see the light is blinking away on this hard drive that I'm trying to recover. And a lot of time has passed between when I ended the last part and this part. I've tried several different things, including booting a Linux USB on this computer. I've tried scanning it with a Windows boot CD. Sometimes you can just repair the boot sector. Not the boot sector, I'm trying to think can't think what it's called, but you repair the sector on there that kind of tells how to find files on the drive. I've had success with that. Didn't work with this drive this time. So just run down a list of things in order of the way I troubleshoot a bad hard drive and recovering data. First thing I try to do, just plug it into a different computer. A lot of times it'll be a bad driver, or just for whatever reason plugging it into another computer gives you enough life out of that drive to get your data off of it. Now once you have a drive that has failed for any reason, get your data off, throw it away. It's not worth keeping, especially if it's your only copy of something. Don't mess with it. If it starts to fail, get rid of it. So, step 1, plug it into another computer. Step 2, take it out of the enclosure that it's in and put it in a different enclosure. Step 3, if neither of those two work obviously, is to plug it directly into a computer. So you eliminate the enclosure entirely. So that means if you have a laptop that you can easily remove a drive from, or a desktop that you can easily pull the drives from and plug it in instead. A lot of times I'll get a drive working. For whatever reason, I don't know if it gives it more power or something. It'll give it just enough to get your data off. Not always. Again, the next step is to, if you're dealing with a Windows computer, plug it into a Linux/Mac machine. Because they use different file formats, a lot of times what Windows can't recognize because it's looking for a pointer file, Linux or Mac OS will actually scan the drive and find those files. That's more if it's a corruption versus an actual failing drive. If you have that, now you should have that accessible to you because you can download free Linux distros, create a bootable USB drive to boot from to be able to complete that task. So you don't have to have a Mac, you can have a bootable USB for Linux. The last step I would recommend doing is finding a third-party application. The reason why I recommend that kind of as a last step is very few of them are free, and very few of them let you get your files for free. So even if it'll scan and find your files, it won't actually let you save your files without actually paying for the software. And they can be pretty expensive. They can be, $60, $70, $100 for the software. And this is actually I'm using Ease US Data Recovery Wizard Trial. This is like my 4th or 5th application that I've tried. And it's the first one that's worked. So not every application is successful in every instance. They all kind of do different things. They'll have a little bit different function. And so depending on what the problem is with the drive, you'll have different results. And that's why I kind of recommend, I recommend X kind of like your last ditch effort. Because you're going to try several different softwares, and the one that might work may cost you a bunch of money. But if you get to that point, it is a good chance that money might be money well spent. Places that do data recovery charge you. I did a little Google search just kind of see what they charge, and some of them charge an hourly rate. Some of them charge a per gig, recovered data gig rate. Some of them charge a per gig of the drive rate. Some charge you, if they are unable to recover anything, a flat rate. Some charge you nothing if they can't recover data. A lot of variation out there, so I can't give a specific amount of money, but I figure it's at least $300 to $400 to recover a drive. It could be upwards of $1,000 to recover a drive, if not more, depending on how it failed and in what way it failed and what they have to do to recover that data. So it's something to definitely consider. If you are able to download a trial software that is able to restore those files, and you end up having to pay for that software, and you're paying $50, $60, $100 for that software, but it's saving you almost $1,000 on the other end, sending it into data recovery, it's 100% worth it. But if you try several trial versions of software and they can't recover that data for you, then your last resort probably is to send your information to a data recovery outfit. And there's plenty of them out there. I cannot recommend one because I've actually never had to use one. I've always been able to, in the end, recover my data, except for once, and that was work related. Funny story, there was a lady I worked with. I was brand new at this job, and right before I started, they'd gone through and set up a new virtual environment, and the rule was if there was any data out there, it had to be moved into the virtual environment. They set up huge data stores for everybody's information. Well, there was one lady who was extremely reluctant to move her data over to the virtual environment, and she was a pain to work with, and so everybody just gave in to her because they just hated dealing with her. And she hoarded computers under her desk, but she also hoarded external hard drives. But one thing she loved to do is if you use external hard drives a bit, especially the big ones that use the 3.5-inch drives, they tend to get a little warm. And so she had a bank of them that she used that as a footrest, literally a footrest. And one day I was in kind of early that day, and she worked early. She was always there super early. And she came in literally screaming at me that something was my fault and I had to fix it because it was all my fault. I was going to get fired. And I was kind of worried because, again, I was pretty new and had a lot of tasks and responsibilities I hadn't had at previous jobs. So I was super nervous. And finally I figured out that it was her external hard drive that was the problem. And what had happened is she had literally just kicked it over. But not just once, multiple times, because she was using it as a footrest. So she'd knock it over all the time. And finally, I guess it just had too much. And I did my best to recover. And I was able to recover about 40 or 50% of the data off that drive. And I was quite impressed with that, because that drive was gone. And but it wasn't enough. The stuff that I recovered had been archived and wasn't needed anymore. And it was more recent stuff that needed to be addressed. And it was actually that stuff that she was writing that was damaged. So anyways, at that time we did reuse a recovery service. It cost us close to like $8,000 or $9,000. It was absolutely, because the drive had been damaged so badly from her kicking it over. Anyways, sorry, that was totally off topic. So don't use external hard drives as footrests. They can't take it. They're not meant for it. They're not meant to be kicked over. Even if you don't think you're going to kick it over, you're going to kick it over. So again, I'm using EasyUS Data Recovery Wizard. They have a free trial. I want to say it's 60 or 70 bucks if I have to buy it. Hopefully I don't have to in this instance. If I do, it's not going on my pocket because it's not my hard drive that failed. The person whose hard drive this is has now purchased a NAS storage, and I'll be helping them set that up once it arrives. And hopefully this gets us the majority of our data. It's come up with a lot of bad sectors, so I have a feeling that this drive is definitely toast, and we're going to lose and have some corrupted data here. Now, I've had this scanning now, oh goodness, I want to say about 3 hours. Let me see, I put a timer when I started. Yeah, so not quite 3 hours ago. It says that it has 5 hours and 13-ish minutes left, but it said that shortly after I started scanning. So that estimated time remaining doesn't have a lot of meaning at this point. I think part of that's because every time it hits bad sectors, that time jumps back up again. So it's been hovering between 5 minutes and 13 seconds and 5 minutes and 5 hours and 13 minutes and 5 hours and like 19 minutes. So as you can see, it jumped back up to 5 hours 16 as it hit another group of bad sectors. So this will be going all night long. The drive is getting a bit warm. I'm glad I took it out of the shell so it has a chance to breathe, and we'll let it do its thing. Hopefully in the morning I can give you some good results of the recovery process. But again, I can only stress this so much, but it's so important. If you have important data that's important to you, you need to have it backed up. You need to have it on redundant systems. In this day and age, there's just no excuse to not have your data backed up. Storage is cheap. When I was first getting into computers, my first computer that I owned as a teenager, not my family one, but one that I owned as a teenager, was a Toshiba Protege. I want to say it was a 610 TC or CT, something like that. It had a 90 megahertz Pentium processor, a 9-inch screen, 640 by 480 screen, and its hard drive was a 650 megabyte, again, megabyte hard drive. And I could literally, to do backups, I had an external CD burner that hooked up to the parallel port. So slow. And I think it burned at 2x. It might have even just burned at 1x. It was painfully slow. But at the time for me, I mean, I was amazed. And I could back up my entire hard drive to a CD-ROM, and I did. Every time I wanted to do backup, I burned it to a CD-ROM, because I was constantly making changes to that computer. But when I went to go out and buy a new hard drive, I was so thrilled to buy. I think I bought a 2 gigabyte hard drive for it, and I was in the clouds. I was so excited to have a 2 gigabyte hard drive, and it cost me almost as much for that 2 gigabyte hard drive as I paid for the laptop. Now, I did pay for that laptop used. I did buy it used, but it was a couple of $100 for that hard drive, and I was thrilled to have it. And you know, nowadays a terabyte hard drive, you know, it'll cost you $60, $70 for a terabyte. You know, you're still in double digits with a 2 terabyte drive. And if you want to do it on the cheap, you pick yourself up something like this. Just throw a couple drives in here, back up to one, clone it to the other. Once a week or something, you have your 2 drives. You know, you have your main drive and your spare. If you want to go cheap, because I think this was $20, a couple hard drives, and you'd be out the door, you know, under $200 for a decent backup. I shouldn't say decent, for a backup system that at least backs up appropriately. So anyways, I'll follow up here in the morning. It's getting pretty late. It's almost 10 o'clock. And let you know how it goes. Hopefully we've recovered this data, and I won't have to do this again for this particular person, because they should know better at this point. This is the second time I've had to do this for them in the last couple of years. So hopefully they've learned their lesson this time, since they obviously didn't learn it last time. Thank you for watching. We'll pick this up again. For me, it'll be the morning. For you, it'll be just a few moments. Thank you. Alright, so I'm still scanning this hard drive. It has been nearly 24 hours since I started. And it's showing that we have completed 3%, and it's still saying over 5 hours. So yeah, it's going to take a while. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. Upload it. If you have any questions about restoring a hard drive, we'll end this here. Thank you for watching. This is the video, or this is the person whose voice you heard in the background. Who are you?
Alexis.
You're Alexis?
Video.
I'm recording a video, and you interrupted.
Oh.
What do you say?
I'm Alexis.
You are Alexis. Can you say sorry?
I'm sorry.
Are you really sorry?
Uh-huh.
What'd you come in here for?
Real?
What do you want?
A person.
You want my Star Wars character?
I don't like it.
You like it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's Daddy, so we won't play with it right now, okay?
Good.
Can you say goodbye?
Bye.
What? I didn't get you. Come say goodbye.
Goodbye. Video game.
Say thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Alright, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.